here we are for our next panel. We talked about the nuts and bolts of appointed positions in the first session, and you heard more from Kelly about what they're going to be doing in the transition. This panel is really very much about that process. What happens next? You're interested in an appointment. Some of the sort of off-the-record advice, maybe, that we might get from the panelists who've been on the inside. It seems to be a great opportunity to learn. We have a terrific group of experts here that are just the perfect people to give you the advice, the information, and the guidance that you need to move forward. I'm going to quickly introduce them. Their bios are on the website. If I were to read them all the way through, it would take the whole session. So I'm going to do a short and sweet version of each of their bios. Right next to me is Jennifer Duffy. She is currently Regional Vice President at Sellers Dorsey. While working for the state of New Jersey, she held many senior management positions, including on the governor's senior staff as appointments director, responsible for navigating judicial nominees through the legislative process and managing the governor's appointments to hundreds of the state's boards and commissions. She also served as the commissioner's top policy advisor at the Department of Human Services and as chief of staff at the Department of Treasury. Yay. Welcome, Jennifer. Next to her, we have Jeannine LaRue, who is a partner at Moxie Strategies. Previously, she played a pivotal role at the Zeta Group, where she was senior vice president. At Rutgers University, here, right here, she served as the vice president of public affairs, where she was a key member of the president's cabinet. She also served as the deputy chief of staff for former New Jersey Governor John S. Corzine, where she oversaw critical state offices, including appointments, constituency services, and intergovernmental affairs. And she has also served as senior vice president at St. Barnabas Healthcare System. Her career includes a 5-year term on the Casino Control Commission, appointed by Governor Florio. She ultimately became vice chair of that commission. She was also chief lobbyist for the New Jersey Education Association, and her other public service roles include serving as an English teacher, adjunct professor, college administrator, and trustee for both Camden County College and Essex County College. She also served 12 years in elective office, serving on her local school board and town council. And she serves on many nonprofit boards, including Garden State Equality Fund and Greater Mount Zion Community Development Corporation. Welcome, Jeannine. Next to Jeannine, we have Gail Gordon. In 2003, Gail was confirmed as the only woman on the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority. And this is a good time to point out that the Sports Authority is the landlord and oversight body for all the stadiums in the Meadowlands complex and is charged with the primary role in the 8 games and finals recently awarded. People say New York, New Jersey, but I'm going to say New Jersey. For the 2026 World Cup. So I'm very excited about that. She began her career working for Pennsylvania Governor and U.S. Attorney General Dick Thornburgh. While working for Thornburgh, she was detailed to the Reagan-Bush White House. She's an attorney that has held a variety of high-profile positions in the for-profit and nonprofit world. She has served as a member of Chris Christie's Finance Committee on his transition team and served as chair for 8 years of the New Jersey Hall of Fame. And she also served, Governor Murphy named her as the complete county commission to ensure an accurate U.S. census. And as she pointed out to me, you were the vice chair of the Chitterelli campaign most recently. So welcome to Gail. And last but not least, we have Laura Matos, a partner at Mad Global, which is a bipartisan public affairs firm. She previously was the New Jersey General Manager and Managing Director of Pivot, a nationally ranked public affairs consulting firm. Prior to that, she worked in the New Jersey Governor's Office for 8 years for Governors McGreevey, Cody, and Corzine, working in various roles with oversight of a vast array of public policy issues. She is currently the chair of the New Jersey Pinelands Commission and served on the 2017 Transportation and Infrastructure and Transition Advisory Committee. And the New Jersey Complete Count Commission, and as a Democratic member of the New Jersey Legislative Apportionment Commission. She also serves on the board of Latina Civic Action and as president of the board of the Latina Civic PAC. Welcome to Laura. So I'm going to to just start us out with one question, because I think this comes up for a lot of people, which is, first of all, what's a realistic time frame? You know, when people are talking about, and I know that question came up a bit for when Kelly was here, which is what do you expect? Or would this, people always wonder, I send my resume to a portal. Is this an instantaneous process? Are we talking 2 weeks? Are we talking months? Does it depend? I don't know who wants to take that first one.
I'll start.
Sure.
First of all, thank you everyone for coming out on a Saturday, and thank you to CAWP and WPC for putting this program on. Incredibly useful and helpful, so thank you. I think it's important for folks to remember that it's government, so it is going to take a while. But you know, I think during the first panel we heard a lot of talk of polite persistence and patience. It is important to, you know, make sure you're top of mind and remind folks of your willingness to serve, but also, you know, be cognizant of not just because it's a front burner issue for you, it may not be a front burner issue for the folks, because, you know, they are, especially coming in as a new administration, you know, drinking from a fire hose a little bit.
I think it's important. First of all, let me just point out, the four of us are all friends.
Yes, we are.
So when you talk about networking, which is really what we're talking about here, I think it's always important, you know, to build up to an appointment that you want. For example, if I was looking for somebody to serve, we need another woman on the sports authority, I would likely call every one of these women and say, who do you like? Who do you think would be good at this? Who's underexposed? I always look for people when I'm talking about appointments that nobody else knows about. You know, sometimes we just recycle the same names over and over and over again. We're all been recycled.
I'm at the end of the recycling.
For example, Jeannine and I served together as chair of the Governor's Conference for Women. And so we looked for new talent. And I think that's important. As you're networking, keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah, and let me say something just to piggyback on what the two of them. First of all, when I walked in here, I could tell there was a woman governor coming into the Capitol. I could tell it, and I mean, there's a different feel. You know, I am, and I don't apologize about it, I am a staunch Democrat, but I actually, don't boo me, I headed up the re-election committee for Christine Todd Whitman for independents and Democrats, because I think that if men can screw up once and get back in, women can do the same, and I did that, and I'm glad she won, so I want to get that out the way. I think that one of the first things that we as women, excuse me gentlemen, must learn to do that men know how to do well is use every single tool in the toolbox. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not going to call any of you out. Already 5 of you, after the introductions, sent me a LinkedIn connect. And if the rest of you who really, if you're serious about doing something, if you don't find a way to connect with us before we get to our cars, then it's going to be a long journey for you trying to get, you know.
But our cars are far away.
But that's the first thing. The other thing that I think, one of the things that Gail said that is so true about our all being friends, and we are bipartisan, you know, RD, and whatever. The truth of the matter is, the world, especially with women governors that I have seen throughout the country, is a very bipartisan effort. That 400-person task force, y'all don't know all of their partisan meaning. We up here do. There are a lot of Republicans that she has put on that, and hooray for her. So I think that it's important for you to understand that this is an open process. There is no cookie cutter as to how this is going to roll. You already saw Kelly. There's never been a COO in the front office. So she is the executive director of transition. Now she is the COO of the administration. So it's going to be different. So we all just got to kind of, as Patty McGuire and I always said, sit up straight and pay attention.
Hurry up and wait.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hurry up and wait.
And so it is not so I came at as the appointments director as the closer.
And that was at the very tail end of the administration. It was, okay, what do we have left? What's open? What do we want to change? Because that position is also one where you can change policies, you can change communications, you can't change board appointments when someone is sitting in that seat. And so it's where that legacy gets to continue on. And so you get to look at the full breadth. Every single one of those seats has largely a distinction of this is a Republican seat, this is a Democrat seat, this needs to come from this residency, location, or jurisdiction. They're all defined. So a lot of it's a political process, which means there's not one straight way of getting it done.
Thank you. So Jennifer, I'm going to just ask you to take this question, which is, as a former appointments director, walk us through what happens, and I know there's no one straight path for anyone, but just literally in the office, when those applicants, people are submitting their resumes into the portal, what actually happens on the other side? What are some of the first steps? What are the kinds of things that the appointments office then does?
So one of the first steps is that application complete? Is it accurate? Is it does it tick and tie? And my goodness, you would be surprised. So first and foremost, if you are applying for a position that requires a license, like be it the cosmetology board or be it a judge, please make sure your license is actually up to date. Please make sure you're paying your taxes. These things matter. Let's get those things out of the way. But what is the tick and tie? And so is the application directly, and who cares about this applicant, right? Who is their sponsor? What problem are they trying to solve? Where do they come in from? And so really just trying to understand that ethos is one of the first things that happens.
I'd like to add something. Sure. There are two things to keep in mind when you're applying for a position. In many, who understands the concept of senatorial courtesy? We get that here?
Christine talked a little bit about it on the first panel.
Basically what it means is I live in Bergen County. And when I was appointed by Governor Murphy as the only Republican and the only woman on the sports commission, you have to be signed off on, approved by every one of the senators in your county.
Not just your state senator, but all of the senators that
So in my
serve for your
case,
county.
there are 6 of them. In Warren County, there's 1 of them. So you have to go with your little kit bag and go see all 6 of them. And the other thing, and Jeannine and I were talking about this the other day, I have to disclose literally every cent I've spent in the last 5 years. There is a massive amount of disclosure that are required for what they call the elite boards. And the elite boards are Port Authority, Transit, Sports Authority, Horizon, and Redford. Sorry, there are 5 of them. And it's a massive undertaking. Not only do I have to disclose my financials, my husband, Senator Gordon, has to disclose his as well. And you'd be surprised how little money we make for these honors. But, then you say you just send it into the portal, and the next thing you know, you got a crown. It doesn't work like that. There are many, many steps, and some of them are onerous. When you were on the casino, how many disclosures did you have?
Let me tell you something, and what Gail is saying is spot on. Because people, they raise their hands, and they sometimes be careful what you ask for. Because, you find out more about yourselves once you are nominated publicly than you ever wanted to know. And some of what you find out about yourselves, you don't want to know, and you definitely don't want anybody else to know. Right,
because that's a public, your disclosure is a public document.
It's public, but the process also. So when I was tapped by Florio to serve on the Casino Control Commission, I didn't even know about way checks. 3-way check and 4-way check. It depends on the board that you're going to be on. So the Casino Control Commission is a quasi-judicial commission. And so they want your last 5 tax filings. They want your credit report. They want your driving history. I didn't realize I'd gotten so many parking tickets. But they found all of it. And one day I came home from, and that's called a 4-way check. There are 3-way checks with some of the other boards, and some of them aren't as even the 3 or 4-way, but, make sure your driver's license are revoked. That's always helpful. And your taxes are paid. And I remember one day, I came home and a neighbor came over to me and said, "What the hell have you done?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, this guy came by today. She said, with the black shiny shoes. I'm like, okay. And so he was asking all these questions about you. They found, I'm old, I'm 75 years old. Now this was like 30 some years ago. They found one of my high school teachers and asked about what was I like as a student because they wanted to know. And it was brutal. And then everything was put online and everybody knew everything. So I'm like, okay, they knew the color of my underwear every day of the week. I'm
When
fine with that.
this is actually sort of a funny story. So I was interviewed by the governor, last governor for this spot, and he had all notes. He said, well, what about this $15 million house you own in Florida? I'm like, yeah, great, where is that? It was a different Robert Gordon.
Yeah.
And so I had to go explain that, how could you look at my financials and think you had a $15 million house? Which, since of course I have bought, but.
And I currently serve as the chair of the State Pinelands Commission. No way it was my background check that in depth, right? So again, getting into the varying levels, what the responsibilities as serving as a commissioner or a board member, that all factors into how significant the background checks are, but the financial disclosures in terms of what becomes public are all the same. So if, on the first panel they talked about it, you can go on the governor's website to the boards and commissions section and look at statutorily what is required. Almost all of them require a financial disclosure, and that's all the same, and that information is all public.
And it's the same level of financial disclosure no matter what.
If financial disclosure is required, it's all the same level of financial disclosure across the board.
If it's required.
If it's required.
Yeah, and the other thing, not to scare everyone, you do, I mean, this isn't Big Brother, you do have to sign a form to give them permission. So they can't just go into your stuff
Right.
without your.
Right.
Which, I mean, on the flip side, it is something that we want of individuals
Absolutely.
who have this responsibility, who have been, properly vetted. We want to make sure that these individuals are meeting the standards of serving everything that they're doing on behalf of that board.
Unlike what's happening in DC right now, we don't know who the hell these people are running our government.
Really?
It's a different panel.
We're here, as seen this way for a reason.
Well, we wanted people who would be honest and
No, but seriously, that's also a really good point, which is, if you choose a life of public service, you have to get along with these folks.
We do.
Right? And, Jeannine and I got to be really good friends, and we were billed as, you two will never get along. And
Yes.
we did instantly.
Because we are both type A.
And actually, I love this as a model of what we're all, I think, hungering for these days, which is just really to live about governance and public service and, treating humans well and all that. But because Gail mentioned senatorial courtesy, and that keeps coming up, and it was mentioned this morning, and just not just senatorial courtesy, but just understanding the relationships. This is where we get into a little bit of the politics of it. You can have a stellar resume and submit it in the portal and just not really be sure what to do next, or can I just call my legislator, or how do I figure out who those key players are? And I just want to tell one story that's about networking, because we have our Ready to Run campaign training program, which I'm just going to blatantly pitch right here. It's in March, so you should attend if you're thinking about it. But someone came to that several years ago and sat down at a table and happened to sit next to an advisory committee member who was there, who was a former cabinet member, who knew everybody in New Jersey politics. And this person who came really wasn't planning on running for office, but she had put her resume in for a board appointment on a health-related board. I think it was like HIV/AIDS or something. She was an expert in it, had all the expertise for sure, and just was really passionate about the issue. But her application was just, she didn't know what to do next. Nothing had happened for months and months and months. And happened to say to this person she didn't know. So this is the power of networking. That's why I'm here today, and I'm just really not sure, I don't know anyone in state government, I don't know what to do. And this former cabinet member said, well, I know a few people. And then made some phone calls and found out that it had nothing to do with this person's application. It was a senatorial courtesy thing. And it wasn't even about that person. It was kind of like just things were being held up. So that was sheer luck. And then she managed to, what would you advise someone? I mean, where do they even start if they're not even already connected to people? Is it a matter of just starting to snowball and find as many people? Where would you begin?
Make the call. To your member, to your elected official, make that call, be it your mayor and asking for an introduction to the senator. Always make that call, right? Even if it's not a senatorial courtesy, like that, going back to one of my earlier points of who is advocating on your behalf is so important. And it's also why this was one of the most fun jobs that I ever had, was because it was the first time where policy and politics were really intertwining in responsibility of a role. It's about deal making, it's about putting the connections together. You really want to make sure that the full package of appointments that are going together, because they typically happen in packages, are all full and complete and people are getting their asks together. So absolutely make that call. Introduce yourself. Here's what the problem that you're trying to solve. Here's the relationships that you're trying to make. Ask for advice. Polite and persistence keeps coming up. It's in my notes before I even, had this morning as I was prepping. Those things matter, absolutely.
Well, don't forget too, even though we're talking about senatorial courtesy, you do have 2 assembly people in your district. And many times start at the bottom, talk to your mayor.
Yep.
Ask your mayor for an introduction to your assembly people or your state senator. But the political aspect of this is also important. Obviously, I was renominated just 2 weeks ago by Governor Murphy. And one of the reasons they chose to nominate me is I live in Bergen County. There are 5 Democratic senators, 1 Republican. They were afraid if they didn't reappoint me that the Republican would exercise courtesy over the other Bergen appointments.
Yeah.
So it was sort of a pincher play, if you will.
It's also not transparent, by the way.
Exactly.
We keep talking about senatorial courtesy and sign-offs. Those are, that's
inside baseball.
Inside baseball.
It's real inside. When I was, I was actually a lobbyist when I was nominated for the Casino Control Commission. And I was telling the team as we were doing our prep for this day, I was so excited because even though I was a Democrat, I had as many great friends on the Republican side as the D side. So I was like, this is going to be a breeze. I've been lobbying for 10 years. They all knew me. They all liked me. And and the governor said, oh, everybody really likes you, Jeannine. We're going to make the announcement next week. He made the announcement. I walked onto the Senate floor. And one of the senators said, I am so sorry. And I said, what? He said, you didn't read the Enquirer. And I said, what? He said, go over to Senator Laskin, who, God rest his soul, was a Republican in my county. I walked over and I said, Lee, what are they talking about? And he said, it's not personal. Just be patient. It's not personal. We will get there. I said, let me see the Enquirer. The headline, I kid you not, she's a political hack. I was devastated. I said, Lee, he said, just, it's not personal. Not personal. Okay. So we go through this thing. I was devastated. I mean, here I was, like in my 30s, late 30s, had really thought that I was like thebomb.com, And this guy has me on the front section of the front page of Jersey section. She's a political hat. And it was a horrible article. And so long story short, we went all through the summer and the fall. I had no idea what Lee was going to do. I said, Lee, what is it that I can do to get you to sign off on me? And he said, it's another thing. It has nothing to do with you. And it really had to do with the person who was challenging him as senator, and it was a young guy challenging him. Nobody ever heard of him. And I'm like, why is he worried? Well, when he wouldn't sign off on me by September, they pumped in a whole lot of money in that district. And John Adler, God rest his soul as well, won as senator. And the next morning, I'm like, how in the world did this young kid, right, Gene? How did he beat Lee Laskin? So I called the senator. And I didn't know what to say, but I thought I would call him real fast. And I'd say, Senator, I'm really sorry. He said, say it, Jeannine. He said, you're not sorry. That's number one. He really wasn't. He said, and secondly, I will not give Adler the honor of signing off on you. There were no computers back then. He said, I have sent the sign off on you by messenger to Trenton. I have signed off on you and I won't be coming back to the legislature. And he signed off on me and I felt awful. We later made amends, but it had nothing to do with me. And this just, I mean, I was in the paper 4 times. It was horrible. So get ready for that if you're gonna go for a big deal.
Father, people are starting to leave, Jeannine.
For 5 years, I was okay, trust me.
But these political hacks have gotten some shit done.
When I was nominated for the Pinelands Commission,
Oh my goodness.
a bunch of environmentalists came and called me a political hack, and I was like, oh.
So it's clearly a badge of honor. We've
Yeah, exactly. But it also, underscores the importance of the bipartisan nature. So just because, we have a Democratic governor, Democratic leadership in both houses, sorry. It is, we still have Republicans and they're still, part of governing and part of the structure. And, it's checks and balances across the board.
And having a thick skin is what I'm gathering from this as well.
Yeah.
Definitely having
Yeah.
thick skin.
So let's talk a little bit about the relationship piece of it. Because a lot of people like to say they don't like politics because it can feel transactional. How do you build a network and connections and move through a process like this without it necessarily feeling transactional, even though it might be?
It's never not.
It's never not. I think that's politics, and don't think that you could take politics out of it.
Nor should you.
No,
Because it's not dirty, right? Nothing is, you're not, I don't know.
You will never meet more interesting people and feel more fulfilled when you look back on your career than for me, the ethos of public service.
Yeah.
And with public service comes politics, unfortunately.
They go hand in hand, absolutely
You
right.
know, I mean, I think is it transactional? Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
it's a combat
transactional.
sport.
It's transactional because it is the dictionary version of transactional.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to keep in mind. And you can't get there alone. You have to have friends on both sides. And women do that better.
I was just gonna say, it doesn't deter men, so it should not deter women,
Exactly.
right?
That's all. I would like to ask a question of the audience, because some of you in the audience have already started the journey, and you don't even realize it. How many of you have been appointed to any transition committee under this particular governor-elect? Put your hands up. Look at that.
And I'll do a 1A to Jeannine's question. How many of you have pursued an appointment or have been appointed to a local or county board or commission?
There you go.
There's the journey. I mean, you've already started that journey. The other thing I'll tell you, just as Laura and I served together in the Corzine administration, it was hilarious when it came to appointments. I am telling you, every time I had to walk, I mean, I don't know how you all did it, but it would be like every 2 or 3 weeks, you gotta do the walk. So
Jeannine would walk in and she would have someone behind her with a stack of folders as tall as she is.
the big guy, my director of appointments, I said, come on, Jen, we gotta go into the governor. And we go in and we start on the boards. I mean, it had a great big thing, we're sitting, all this stuff. And I would say to him, now, Governor, people are really, really upset. We haven't done anything with the sports authority yet. And he's like, is it diverse? Governor, no, they're only giving us white men. I don't want to deal with that pile right now. It's no women, nothing, no. So then we would go to the other parts. And he's like, this senator, no, I'm never going to do this for him. I'm like, oh my God, he's a Democrat. He's like, I don't care, I'm not going to do that. And I mean, it was like on and on and on. And I would walk out of his office with maybe 4 files that he would say, start the process on this. I'm like, really, dude? This is the best we're gonna do? And the calls would come in from the legislators. When are you gonna do my appointments? And that's the way it is. Watching sausage being made is crazy.
I think we're forgetting a part of this too, which is money.
Yes.
And a lot of times you can get your start, I mean, I started as a fundraiser. And a lot of times you get to know your legislators and your senators, and they're gonna turn around and say, will you host a fundraiser for me? And that's another set of skills
Yeah.
many people need to have. And, oh, I could never do it. Yeah, you can. It's not that hard. I mean, as long
But
as.
it's not a requirement also.
Right, but as long as you take yourself, but a lot of people say, hey, Laura, can you help me out with X, Y, Z?
My husband asked me the other day when I became a fundraiser, I was like, oh, I don't know.
Right, I
It
mean,
happens.
right, and also, there's no shame in it.
No.
It's
But it's not the
mother's
only,
milk.
but it's not the only way,
But it's
right?
another avenue.
Another avenue, yes, yes.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about qualifications and expertise. And it came up a little bit, I mean, there was a question this morning about, do you need to only apply for boards that technically you feel like you have expertise in?
No, men don't care, neither should we. If you want to serve, put yourself out there and serve.
Well, what is it you call it? You have a name for it.
one is that?
Insecurity or.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
So, the thing that's funny, when Florio called me and said he wanted me to come over, and it's funny, I wanted to be the first mayor. This is the way women think. I wanted to be the first mayor of my town. So here I am as the lobbyist for NJEA, and the governor calls me and says, I want to talk with you because we're looking at, now I was making at that time, I thought it was a whole lot of money, but it was 30 some years ago, like $60,000 to be on the Casino Control Commission was $90,000, so that was a nice rate for me, right? And it was, I didn't know at that time, it's considered a formal appointment.
You're a hack.
So he calls me, I was a hack. He calls me and says, I want to talk with you about serving on the Casino Control Commission. And I said to him, oh no, Governor, I want to be the first mayor of Windsor Township. He's like, what? So he said, okay, so then his chief of staff called me, Joe, and he says, Jeannine, the governor would like you in his office tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, are we talking about that appointment again, Joe? He said, yes, we are. I said, oh, okay. So I go over and he says, look, I want you to serve on the Casino Control Commission. This is to the point of qualifications. He said, all of the other commissioners are former senators. He said, I said, well, Governor, I voted against gambling in New Jersey twice, and I know nothing about casinos. He said, that's why I want you. He said, the promise was to the residents of this state is that we would use money to change things, to develop Atlantic City, and to help elderly people. I wasn't elderly then, I am now. And he said, I want you to be the voice of the people on that commission. And I have to tell you, one of the best decisions I made was to serve on that commission for 5 years. And my voice made a huge difference. And they gave me a lot of respect. So sometimes you might say, you look in the mirror and say, I'm not like them, I can't do it. But you're like you, and you can do it.
Yes.
A similar story. Right after 3 Mile Island, I was called into the governor's office in Pennsylvania, and he said, I'm detailing you to the White House as a speechwriter. I'm like, I'm not a speechwriter, Gov. He's like, are you listening to me? I'm sending you to the White House as a speechwriter. So get those bona fides and polish them up. And that's, you're never an imposter. If you have one thing that you can relate to in the office that you're seeking, go for it.
Go for it.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You don't get it. Right? Oh, boo-hoo.
You definitely won't get it if you don't try.
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
I was appointed chair of the Trenton Psychiatric Hospital.
Wow.
Right. So,
Wow.
and it was one of the most impactful boards
Yes.
I could have been on. Incredible organization.
I live a half a mile from you. Thank you.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes,
Too?
it really is.
I love it.
It really is. It's great work.
But that wasn't your background,
But
right?
my point is, I'm not a psychiatrist.
Yeah, for the Highlands, I mean, I enjoy the environment. I think the Highlands are beautiful. I grew up there, but it was in no way a passion of mine. But I was asked to serve, and I said, I will serve. Thank you for asking.
And you get passionate.
Now I
And now
forget
she's the chair.
it. But it's, if you have a viewpoint, then your viewpoint is valuable. There's all different types of diversity. We were talking about age and other things, but it's also experience, and it's, sometimes inexperience is more valuable than vast experience in a certain area because of the perspective that you bring to the conversation.
I don't know anything about soccer, okay?
Well, what I learned on the Pinelands is we work closely with the Sports and Exposition Authority because you guys have a huge environmental footprint, obviously, and our environmental staff folks work together closely because it's similar biospheres.
See what we know? I have one other part of levity that I just have to insert. How long is this story? This one is really levity. So, as most of you know, who know me up close, you know that I am gay. I didn't know I was gay until about 25 years ago, but I guess I always was gay.
Here we go.
All right, so as there, those of us up here, we're called from time to time to advise the transition folks with a lot of stuff. So they called us in one by one so that we could look at the policy committees that they're getting ready to announce. So I said to the woman who was doing it, I said, wow, this committee has a lot of LGBTQIA people on it. She looked at me, she said, how do you know that? And I was like, duh. She said, oh, I didn't know you were, and I didn't know these people were. So they are looking for diversity across the board, but there are certain things they can't ask. So those of you, and I know some of you in this room right now, those of you who feel that you bring that voice to the table, they want to hear it. Because that issue right now is so controversial. As especially, I had a physician come up to me and say, that she really specializes in trans medicine, with that type issue. And so I just want to say that whatever your diverse issue is, I'm short, I'm black, I'm gay, I'm woman, I got all that first. Use all of you to make the point why you would be unique in an appointment and good for this state.
Thank you for that. And I will also say, so I've been picking up on some of the advice. Some of the advice that I'm sure you're all hearing, which is always make the call, always apparently say yes. If somebody asks you to do something and, you have a willingness to serve, don't worry about, whether or not you.
Well, the other, if I could just interject there, you really need to say yes, because once you say no, you're at the bottom of the pile.
Interesting.
Again.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So my related question to the saying yes and or just building your network, we talked about making the calls to legislators or calling the, sort of the obvious people. Do you have recommendations for other ways to build your network so that you are the person that comes up on a list or somebody thinks of you? Other people you could be talking to besides the four of you and the other panelists here, but, who else should you be talking to? Yeah. Me, those specific centers, but people in the little parties, just
also your church groups, your library groups, your community groups.
And how many of you raised your hands that you're already serving on a board of commission in your municipality or your county, right? That's a great starting place, right? You're already doing it. You're already networking and making those connections. And then, sometimes it's just looking at it yourself through a different lens. You're already active in these groups. Looking at it through the lens of growing your experience and your personal or professional portfolio can help you kind of think about how you network differently in those rooms and with those folks.
There are a couple good books, and you'll probably recognize some of the names, about branding, and building your own brand, and I think that's important as well.
It's very important. It's very, and to go along with building your own brand, one of the things that I have found in this journey, this is literally my last gubernatorial anything, I'm not doing this at 80 years old, I'm done. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun.
Mark it down when in 4 years, she's sitting up here again. With everyone being real.
Done. But I often say, one of the most boring things about people who want to be appointed to anything, they feel that they just show up and tell you what they've done in life, and everybody should be so excited and start kissing the ring. I love it when people are passionate about something. Now I've had some folks since the governor-elect won, who have come to me and said, I want to serve on a board. And I said, what are you interested in? I don't know, almost anything. I'm like, okay, bye. Because if you're interested in almost anything, have something. Tell me what you like to do. Tell me what you're passionate about. Branding, that's what I said. You've got to, if you're not passionate about something, and if you don't know what it is today, we've put it out in the universe, find it. Figure it out. And then I'm telling you, then when you start talking to others, they're gonna say, I met this woman or man, and I was impressed with them. Maybe I wanna give your name to Kelly or someone inside. Maybe they would be interested in you.
And I would say, I think you had a question earlier about, you submitted your application and was it detrimental if you checked off a number of areas? The answer was no, it's not.
Right.
And I agree with that. But I just want to make a distinction of what Jeannine is saying is the difference is identifying areas and saying, oh, I'm interested in the environment and healthcare and education, as opposed to, I don't know what I like. Right? So, I just want to make that distinction because your question popped into my head.
Yeah,
when
don't let
she
someone
said
else
it.
define you.
Yes.
Yes.
But I think summing it up is be open to serve and have some options to
Yes.
know who you are. So
Yeah, that's
both of those things are really important.
Yeah, don't make people like Jennifer do the work. It's your
not
job
going
to
to.
make it
Yeah.
easy.
You want to provide solutions, not more problems.
Yes.
And once you have gotten nominated or you know that you're being considered, don't bug the hell out of folks. That's one way to go at the bottom of the pile. Once a person knew that we were working on them, if we're working on you, we're working on you. You don't have to call every week and say, when is this going to be up? Where are we now? Let the process work.
Right, but you don't want it to languish too.
Right.
I mean, it's a really delicate
It's a
balance.
delicate balance. It's a fine line to toe for sure.
I won't mention the woman's name, but some of you may know of her, but I thought it was hilarious because now she's a friend of mine, but she got nominated for a high office, very high office, and was all ready to be announced that, it's going to be on the agenda of judiciary, and she moved.
Oh, I have one similar.
Yes, she moved. Don't move. If you move, you have gotten some more senators, and you're going to piss off the front office because they got to start all over again negotiating, and that person never got through the system. It was a very, very high position, and she moved, and there was only one senator who said, I don't like her. And the whole process
my
was
husband.
dead. That wasn't your husband. Your husband liked everybody.
Well, I think that's right. It's like you get so far in this process. There's so much political apparatus that comes into it, and largely it has nothing to do with you or your application. Everything starts coming together, and one major, mine was she shows up to I think her son or daughter was getting pulled over. And did the Do You Know Who I Am?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
That was fun.
This one,
And I thought
everybody popped up in my algorithm.
Yeah, it's a classic. Yeah.
Or do you realize that this person's license is expired, but they want to be a judge? I'm like,
Right.
can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I check.
Yeah.
This woman only moved 3 blocks, but it happened to be in another town.
That's
And the house was a beautiful house, and she got a bargain, but she didn't get the appointment.
I'd rather get the bargain.
Okay, so more advice is don't move in the middle of the process, or at least figure out if where you're moving is going to affect anything, right?
I think we can't underestimate the power of cultivating friends on the opposite side of the aisle.
Yes.
Because it's
Very
so
important.
important. I'm not just talking about courtesy. I mean, for your own fulfillment.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
believe it or not, Jeannine's not always right. And Gail's not always.
The important point is like you start hearing things, right? And then you can start triangulating things, you start knowing people, you start seeing how things show up. There's a lot of pattern recognition that starts developing too.
And New Jersey is uniquely relationship driven in this
It is.
world.
And small.
And small. I'm I'm a member of the Democratic National Committee representing New Jersey. And that is, you know, when I talk to folks from other states at these meetings that we have, it's a comment every time. It's like, oh, New Jersey is so deep into relationships. You know, we're political here in Utah or wherever, but we're nothing like New Jersey. Everyone knows everybody, and they've known them for their whole career, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. And it really, you know, I always joke and say that, you know, we're special unicorns here, but it's true. The way that we operate, it really is a unique ecosystem.
Well, also, I could call either, you know, my opinion on whether it be, you know, school funding or whatever. We can be diversely different on our opinions of that, but I can call her and go, tell me why you think that way. And it helps me enrich my own thinking. I can still disagree with
Well,
you.
I don't change your mind. That's the problem, Gail.
You have, probably.
You know, we've done one. So, and the other thing, you know, what I say to folks who step into this business, and I know that it looks as though someone's coming down, so we're winding it down.
15 minutes.
Yes.
15 minutes.
What? Oh, that's not bad. So,
No, we're gonna do Q&A.
That's one of your stories, 15 minutes.
But look what they're walking out of here with. I mean, it's like that's bad. But one of the things that I would strongly urge you to do, and to me, this is, I mean, it's been a common theme when we talk about liking each other and being friends and that, is that in this business, I hold on to all, I mean, literally all of my relationships. Jean Fox, stand up. Jean Fox. Jean Fox and I go back to the 70s. That's how long we've been friends in this business. And there are some others in the room. You know, have fun with this. You know, don't make this just a Saturday where you came here for a seminar and you now walk out with all this good information. Have fun with it. Develop relationships. They're important.
Absolutely.
We are going to open it up for audience Q&A. I don't know if the mic's around, if Emily has the mic, or somebody's going to get the mic. Oh,
There it
okay.
is.
But while you're all thinking about your question, I will just say one last thing, which is just to follow up on that. You said don't be the person who pesters constantly. How often should someone kind of check in if they haven't heard anything?
I think it depends on where we are in kind of the legislative calendar,
Yeah.
right? Because the front office could be working on something, but if it's an advise and consent and the Senate doesn't have any judiciary committee hearings coming up, or quorums, there's nowhere for it to go. So recognizing where you are in kind of the political and governmental calendar as related to your appointment is one thing. I think that's an important piece is that cognizance.
Well, the other thing is, if you are up, you know you're up for an appointment, you can say to a Jeannine, listen, I don't want to bug you, how often is the right time to call? And if she says every 6 weeks, don't call every week.
Right.
And you don't always have to be the person who calls, right? That's another,
Yeah,
is like
great
having
point.
someone else call on your behalf is also just as powerful.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the hands and then we have the mics. I'm gonna have the mics work this way, so maybe we could start with that person. Maybe the mic right there.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. Hi, I'm Lady. I'm from Hudson County. I love the experiences that you guys shared, especially the ones that are focused on you being asked to serve. But I'm wondering if there's any experiences that you can share of times where there was a commission, authority, a task force that you were interested in serving. How did you manage to kind of go through the process and enter the process that way?
Only been on the line for it. Well, I mean, I don't have an experience that's specific to a board or commission appointment, but thinking about, other types of positions or jobs or things like that, that I've been interested in and proactively pursued, it's kind of the same formula that we've talked about, right? Recognizing who the decision makers are, and making sure that you're in and around those folks and people who influence those decision makers, and that you're, offering to volunteer to help and offering your skill set to be of value. and, you know, showing that you're a team player and that you want to be a part of whatever is happening, I think is a really important part to make yourself known in a positive way.
And one of the things that you might want to look at, because we're talking about statewide appointments right now, but understand the whole world is statewide. Mayors have task forces where they're looking for good people. Even in your counties with the county colleges, not every appointment to the college board of trustees, not every appointment comes out of the governor's office. Some of them are done actually by the county itself. So I served on the Essex County College Board of Trustees and the Camden County Board of Trustees, decades apart. But my seat didn't come from the governor. The governor has most of those appointments, but not all of them. So, and then every 10 years, I mean, Laura, I know you and I did, I can't remember if the two of you did serve on redistricting. You served, were you in the legislative
I was
redistricting?
legislative redistricting.
And I was on the congressional redistricting commission. That is like awesome, and I mean, that's real political. But it's great to be on those as well.
Okay, and we'll do this one, and then, actually, you're right there, and then we'll do this one next. Go ahead.
Hi, Stacey Uwald. I'm an elected official on the Chatham Township Committee. First of all, thank you. This has been amazing, and I appreciate your service. Thank you for your service. I'm curious on like kind of the day-to-day. What does it look like, especially at that state level? If there's an example of something that you're really proud of that you worked on, or if there's something you've seen other people work on. I'm kind of interested in a little more of the nitty-gritty day-to-day.
Well, I mean, the Sports Authority meets every month, and we have special event committee and various committees, and I'm vice chair, so I probably have a little more. I probably put in, I would say 15 to 20 hours a month, and it's going to accelerate with the World Cup. First, I need to learn what a goalie does. But as we accelerate into the World Cup, we are the funding mechanism for the New Jersey part of the Sports Authority. So we work not only with the teams, but with the World Cup committee. And so that's going to take even more time.
Yeah, and on Pinelands, I'm chair, so it's similar, the various committees. So we have a monthly commission meeting, and then our separate committees have.
Do you do all the committees?
I eliminated a committee and merged it with another committee, because yes.
Always smart.
But so I have meetings twice a month, and then a different meeting once quarterly. And they're all in person. It's an hour from my house. Sometimes I can do them virtual, but I prefer to be in person in the room. So, it's about 15 to 20 hours plus. This is just, it's not a Jeannine long story, but, part of the Pinelands Commission is when someone wants to do something in the Pinelands and, we agree that it's something we want to do, but our rules don't strictly allow for it. We enter an MOU process with the entities that want to do it. We've been doing it recently a lot with accessible parks and accessible trails. And that is a 13-step process. That starts with in-person meetings with myself as chair and the executive director. So, depending on how many of those things are going on, that adds to it. But it's not an insignificant commitment, but, obviously absolutely worth it.
I think, however, too, to keep in mind, when you're in leadership of these appointment processes, you always get new members. I mean, several people were reappointed. So we have 1, 2, 3 new members right now, and there may be more. You start all over again.
Yeah, I have one new member that's coming on.
And you have to educate them on what committee's right for them, and then,
And it's all new politics.
it's grounded.
Too. Yeah. One of the things that who asked the question? Yeah. One of the things that I had to do with the one appointment, and that was the Casino Control Commission, was to establish myself as a person they would listen to. Because when I was appointed, there were no women on it. There were no people of color, and everybody was over like between 50 and 60.
And you said they were all former senators.
And they
as
were
well.
all former. So they were looking at making gambling in Atlantic City 24 hours. And one of the party bosses actually put the word out to all of the casino execs, including Donald Trump, that you don't have to talk to the black woman because she's in somebody's pocket. So there was a person who controlled my vote. And once I found out, and I was devastated by that, once I found out, and you can't talk to each other, even now, the commissioners, they can't sit and talk about how they're gonna, you know, even though we're in the same building. So I'm like, I'm gonna have a little fun with this. So as the general counsel started going around to each of us saying, do you have any questions on the 24-hour gaming regulation? You know, how are you inclined to vote? You could tell the general counsel. I said, I think right now I'm undecided. He was like, really, Commissioner, could you tell me what the issue is? I said, I don't really know yet. He's like, so he said, well, will you be ready for Memorial Day? You know, it's a big holiday. We want 24-hour gambling. I said, oh no, I don't think I'll be decided by then. So they thought I was joking. And they brought it up for a vote anyway. And they got to each of the commissioners. And I said, at this moment, I'd like to table this. I really need to look at it further. They're looking like, what? All of a sudden, all of the casino execs were like, get to Commissioner LaRue. And from that day on, people talked to me. They talked to me.
One of the, it's fun now, I can say it's fun now, it was not fun then, negotiating health benefits. With
Yes.
all of the unions in the state, including the NJEA, CWA, police and fire, and saving, not only saving dollars and making sure dollars were really well invested in healthcare of our public employees, extremely important, but also making sure that the services that were offered, doing patient-centered medical homes, making sure that access to medication, you can do both. And so it requires really good insight, making sure you've got your policy understood, making sure you got your research done, but also making sure you understand the politics of the other members and where they come at, where would they be willing to negotiate, who's absolutely not going to negotiate, and that's okay too. You can form other strategies, but that was very fun, experience I can call back to now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Question?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks so much for being here and for answering my question and for the Center for American Women in Politics. I think my mother was going to Douglas right around the time that CAWP was started, and she would have really liked this program. I imagine the short answer is it depends, but I'm curious how much any given board might enable or prohibit you from being more involved in politics. Earlier we were talking about JPAC, so I imagine after you go through that process, you're very limited, but then other boards, you might be expected to do more.
If you go to the Casino Control Commission, you can't be involved in politics at all. You can't go to any fundraisers or nothing. And you cannot go into the casinos and sit down and have a meal. You are regulating it. You can't do that.
And it goes back there's a specific board or commission you're interested in. If you go to that website on the page on the governor's website, it'll tell you for each commission what the limitations are around those types of things, political activity, and then any other requirements.
And most of the boards aren't paid. That's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize. Most of them are not paid.
Yeah.
And so I would just want to add to that, because as an appointments director, I assume that if someone was approached about being on a particular board, they could ask the appointments office, I'm trying to read about the statute, I just want some clarity on what this means for this board.
And if that was the case, those parameters, I would make sure, or the person responsible is making sure that they are also telling what the obligations are.
On the other hand, there are certain boards where you, like the complete count commission that we were on, I got put on that, nobody ever asked me, because they needed one Republican.
Interesting.
Right,
Yeah.
so it was like I was, I felt like I was a minority.
Diversity takes many different forms.
We're about done.
This is a good point, right? Because people assume that this is a new administration, that's a Democratic administration. I mean, you guys have already talked about bipartisanship, but there are actual statutory requirements.
Yeah, no, this was a requirement.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think we have time for one more question
Well,
right
this
here.
lady over here, she's
Oh, I'm
been
sorry.
flying for a while.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You will hear me? Hi.
Yes.
My name is Dr. Saudi Garcia from West Orange, New Jersey. I work in progressive higher ed issues. I want your advice. First of all, I want to say thank you, everyone here. This is so exciting. It's like the best part of my week. So many people ready to serve for free to make this place a better place. That's really amazing. So it blew my mind. But I want to ask your advice for how to be politely persistent in case of rejection.
So,
Jennifer.
There's some cases where the rejection just doesn't, there is no rejection, right? Like there's no paper process to say, sorry, you're declined. It might just languish, right? And so I think that that's where it comes up of how far into the process are you? Or have you had those vetting conversations? To what board? Those circumstances of course matter. But I think another consideration to, if that does happen, I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry, this opportunity is not going to be available. The first thing you would ask back, it's like, okay, fine, is there something else? What's your recommendation for this next thing, or how can I continue my desire to serve? I want to solve X, Y, and Z problems.
Well, is there a problem too if you say, was there a problem with my application?
Right. I was just going to say, right, calling the question and asking the question. I think a lot of the things that we talk about in terms of networking and putting yourself out there, we haven't really, it's kind of an elephant in the room, but a lot of it is getting out of your comfort zone, right? And, again, the imposter syndrome and that all plays into it. But you are your own best advocate. And so making sure that's front of mind when you're investing your time and energy into pursuing these types of appointments and things is super important. It's, I think especially as women, we need to remind ourselves of that a lot.
Well, especially if it's your first time up and it languishes or you get a solid no, you owe it to yourself to say, what's going on here? Right? Is my resume wrong? Is there...
Are there individual things you can point to that I can improve upon? Was there a specific issue
Make
that I
it
can
a learning
address?
experience
Yes.
and not just a rejection. Because we've all been rejected. You just got to pick yourself up and ask again.
Keep going. Let's take the last question. Cheers and microphone.
Thank you for taking my question, Loretta Rivers, Piscataway. I just want to know, it's kind of two-parter. If you want to be on a board or commission, can you work for the state? And also, if you want to run for a political, space, can you do that and still be on a commission or a board?
Depends. It really depends. I think as state employees, for the most part, I would think, but again, don't quote me on this by any stretch. I think that's okay. And then the political activity piece, is specific to certain boards of what you can do running for office or that.
It's like a yes and a no but.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're looking at, depending on what board you're trying to serve. Again, there's so many distinctions, like regulatory parameters inside those boards. So, yeah.
And if you're thinking about running for an office or running for an office, it depends on if you are going against the incumbent folks, or even if you're running for a local office. If the senator who has to sign off on you says, oh no, really? She really thinks that we're gonna let her also get on, it's never gonna get through. So, that's one of the things, that's where politics really plays a big part. That's when the B word comes up. Right? That's block. Yes.
And that's not just senators or legislators, right? That's, the county party structure, right? We're county party driven here in New Jersey. The county party structure comes into play with those types of political considerations as well.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I know you said no more questions, but as I'm listening, I'm Stacey Lloyd. As I'm listening to this, there are times that my old colleagues, I'm a retired state trooper, but there are times where me and my colleagues are like, how did that happen? Like, that's like the worst person ever. Like, it's like, how? And it's just that word that someone has a seat at the table where they can just advocate, and collectively we know the best person that we want to represent us, but they don't have that connection, but that one person has the ear, and we're all like, how does this keep happening?
And you know what, Stacey, you hit the nail on the head, because the other thing y'all need to understand, sometimes the best person doesn't get the job.
Life isn't fair.
Yep. Yep. Way to end on a
If you had one sort of positive piece of advice, it could just be a word or a sentence or something.
Don't let Miss Lloyd under your panel.
And afterwards, we'll have to talk around coffee around it. But if you just want to end with just even, a word, a sentence, one bit of inspiration for this group that's here today about this.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. That's it.
You started, keep going. Right?
Yeah, today's an incredible step, and just keep taking steps. Take one step every day, if not more. But this is a big one today.
And the thing that I would tell you, there is nothing other than my kids and relationships and my dog. There is nothing more fulfilling than serving.
100% right.
Well, I want to say again on behalf of the Center and the Women's Political Caucus, we can't say thank you enough to the four of you. I mean, we told you, I don't know if we told you this, but we knew we were bringing you the best. And we brought you four of the best people. Thank you.